know if you can see the sparks. In this video, I'm going to do a quick review of the titanium stiletto framing hammer. This particular model here is the Mini 14, and some of the questions I'm going to be answering are: is it worth the money, and why would somebody buy a titanium hammer? Because when I first saw these things, I thought it was the stupidest thing in the world, because why would you want a hammer to be light if the purpose of it was to impact force? Because on a job site, hammers are often used for far more than just driving nails. Either it's beating the hell out of something to get it to go where you want it to, or beating the hell out of something to get it out of your way. You often need a lot of ass behind a hammer. This hammer here definitely had a lot of ass behind it, but it was tearing my elbow up. If you've ever experienced tennis elbow, and you're a framer, a carpenter, or a scaffolder in the commercial industry, hammers like this are what's doing that to you. This here is an anti-vibe. I believe this is the second one of these that I bought, and I break them all the time. I'm rough on my tools. I got to get the job done, you know what I'm saying? So these are all steel hammers, and you may ask yourself, well, why buy a $200 hammer? You're looking at about $200 worth of hammers right here, seeing as how I do not have the other one of this that I broke. I broke this twice. So there's your 200 bucks for sure. This E-swing, I think, this is not an E-swing actually. This is just an old cheapo. I also have an E-swing like this that I broke that was like $45. So I've been through a lot of hammers, but you may ask yourself, is it too light to do anything? And I'm going to answer the question, and that is no. This hammer, it is a little light for moving walls, and you got to beat a wall on the plate. You got to put a little extra ass behind it, but I don't have tennis elbow anymore. And I want to share with you this little feature right here, this pry claw, which essentially enables you to pull a nail with more force than any other pry you can get. We've all done this with our hammer where we pried nails out to the side. Well, if you're a scaffolder and you've driven these hard nails through plywood into scaffold pans, you know how much of a bitch it is to pull these out. This little side pry right here is absolutely awesome. It pulls nails right out. Sometimes when they don't come out in one stroke, I do this double action on it, where I will, let me try to get a good stick here. It's only one layer of wood, so it's not really going to stick. What you can do is you lift up like that, and then just give it a pry that way. And it is so awesome. You can pull nails right out of steel pans in scaffolding jobs. I am a scaffolder. As you can see here, I'm not just some marketer trying to promote their little tool here. You can see the asbestos and arsenic and whatever other mercury powder all over this tool belt. This is my scaffold belt, and that there is my framing belt that I use for doing framing and stuff. But I'm posting this video on behalf of all you people who have thought of buying one of these hammers, and on behalf of the Americans who made this hammer. This is not a Harbor Freight Chinese carbon copy piece of crap. This hammer is badass. I don't ever see myself breaking this hammer. It's made out of freaking titanium. You can see I have beat the hell out of the ends there. And the only bad thing about this hammer, there was one bad thing about this hammer, and I want to show you that in a second. And it's not really a bad thing, it just depends on the job you're on. First of all, I want to also point out the ergonomics are pretty cool. It's got this nifty little thumb notch right here. It just feels really good in the hand. The ergonomics are awesome. One quick little tool tip. See those three little notches right there? Those are identification notches, so if any wise ass decides to pick up on my hammer and try to claim it as his own, like writing his name on it, I still got my 3 little Trinity marks on there. I do that to all my tools actually. So they've got a hidden serial number on them. But anyway, let me show you one of the bad things about this hammer. Titanium is highly pyrophoric. So if you're working in a gas plant or in like a wheat mill doing scaffold or anywhere where there's an explosion hazard, this hammer is absolutely not to be used. I don't know if you can see the sparks this bad boy kicks off, but yeah, that did not just happen, by the way. That's from me prying the hell out of scaffold. I'll stick it in between 2 bars, the bar and the rosette sometimes, and pry the hell out of it trying to get it to go. But pretty good sparks there. Mix the hell out of that steel. That's a nice little hammer there. It did take on a little damage doing that, beating on that steel like that. But nonetheless, this is titanium. I don't see myself ever breaking this hammer. These are slightly bent out of shape, just a hair, but nothing to really worry about. I am going to sharpen them up here eventually. I do like the angle of this claw, by the way. Some hammers have a very poor angle on their claw. This particular one's an example. You see how that dips way out in relation to the rock? That can be a problem in certain areas, certain tight locations. I've always been a fan of this type of claw shape. This hammer also is somewhat close, but this is a far better version. It has the straightest, which you're going to find to be the best. Once you use this particular hammer design, you'll notice the difference. There's just something, some hammers have a really bad claw to them that just makes them impossible to even use. I don't think I have a hammer that crappy around here. I do not believe I would own such a thing. But if I did, it'd be holding the door open somewhere or something, or papers on my desk. But yeah, guys, if you're wondering whether or not this is worth $200, let me put it to you this way. After seeing the guys that work with one of these and trying it out, I was willing to pay $225 just so I could get it within 2 days. Because they were boycotting my wooden hammer. They don't allow wooden hammers in scaffold jobs. And I wanted to do the right thing and get the tools that they wanted. And this is a bash guard that I would put on here. This is a little tip also with hammers. If you wrap electrical tape around the neck of a wooden hammer, you will prolong the life of that hammer probably 80%. I change the tape out too as time goes by. And if you don't, you're just going to chip away at that, and before you know it, it's going to start falling apart. So, but this hammer also has the magnetic nail set, which is definitely kind of handy for setting fascia or putting a nail down in the end of fascia when you're plywood and roof. I like having that to, eventually you'll get good enough where you'll be able to stab this nail right in the corner of stuff, like on fascia and things like that. I don't know if I can do it while I'm holding my camera, but I can get pretty close. Like if that was the corner of a fascia, I can still rest my plywood on that nail. I mean, I'll give it one more shot. As I said, I'm kind of holding this camera, so no. You get pretty good at it though, putting this nail right about where you want it. Sometimes when I'm hanging over the edge of a fascia board up on a wall, I can get that nail to stab. And what I'll do is I'll be like this, my foot will be on the fascia, and I'll stab a nail right into that fascia board from my plywood from my first row of sheeting. And having that little bad boy there to do that really helps out, especially when you got a loaded tool belt and you're just covered in clothes from the cold and all that kind of stuff. So this hammer is definitely pretty awesome. And as I said, the thing I like the most is this pry action. Give it a crank that way and then just wrap it and you're in there. It's far more powerful than the claw itself, and the reasoning for that is the fulcrum. You can see this distance here in relation to the pivot point. Your pivot point is right across the top of the hammer, or your fulcrum is right across the top of the hammer, and this is your connection. Whereas with the claw, your connection point is here and the fulcrum is way over here. The closer your fulcrum is to your connection point, the higher the mechanical advantage. So that little nail pull right there has some serious power. It will pull the head off the nail if you ain't careful. So if you have not bought one of these hammers and you're serious about your job and you're a commercial carpenter, or if you're a commercial scaffolder, you build a lot of scaffolds and power plants and refineries and things like that, and you want to know if this hammer is worth it, definitely. I will be buying this again when someone steals it from me, because I can pretty much guarantee it I ain't gonna break it. If I break this, I'm gonna post a video because I gotta see this one myself. It'd be kind of cool. And as you can see, I am kind of rough on hammers, so breaking them ain't no thing. I would personally never use a hammer like this. This is from back in my old siding days. But there you have it, the Stiletto titanium hammer. This particular version is the Mini 14. There are other versions of this hammer. I highly recommend you buy one. I paid $230 for mine because I wanted it as soon as possible.